I'm taking on the challenge of completing 100 days in a world filled with endless opportunities. Okay, actually there might not be that much stuff here. This is SKYBLOCK INFINITE, a world where we start on a tiny island and need to build up our world, all whilst living over a huge void of nothingness. So I'm giving myself just 100 days to get geared up, defeat that awful dragon, and build some epic cool stuff. And if that wasn't enough of a challenge, we're going to be playing in hardcore. So we really best try not to fall over the edge, I suppose. So here we are in our brand new world on day 1 with a jungle tree to start us off. I peeked over the edge and honestly it scared the nuts out of me because I am very much scared of heights. I took a look out into the void to see what it was about. There was various different trees and also a bloomin' village. That is actually proper amazing. I grabbed our starter kit from the chest and then broke the grass on our island, eventually with the final bit getting a single seed, which was a relief. Mined out the top layer of dirt, trying not to lose any to the void before extending the island out a bit to catch any of the tree drops. Then it was time to break our first tree of the world, and yes, I am using fast leaf decay because, well, just because. Planted saplings and then it was time to get straight down to work. First job of getting straight down to work vibes was making a cobble generator. I lost a bit of the dirt to the void, which was epic sadness, but I guess I can get over that as now we have a way to mass produce blocks. Cobble blocks to be precise. I made a hoe which I'm ashamed to say I needed the recipe book for and planted our single seed of sadness to get that going. I then started to think about what our first task to aim for would be. I didn't know that we could get villages, so I assume that means we can get villagers too. If we can, then that's going to be super important, so I'd quite like to make them safe. So the first job is getting enough blocks to get over there. That meant it's time to get some cobble, and after upgrading to a stone pick, I set to work grinding away, while stopping occasionally to do things that I probably should have already done, like plant my sugarcane and my melons. Before I knew it, the sun was rising on day 2, so I stopped the cobble for a bit to notice that I was surrounded by jungle trees. I grabbed a stone axe and got rid of all of those, but clearly we are lacking a bit of space for trees and seeds and stuff. So I spent a bit of time carefully mining out the dirt in a desperate attempt not to lose what is going to be a very important block to keep hold of. That was all replaced with cobble slabs, and then I extended the dirt woody farmy area out on the other side. Before I knew it, whilst I had a decent sized dirt bit, night time of day 2 was already upon us. So I made a furnace, cooked up some logs for torches, and popped them down for a bit of light. I planted the remaining saplings I had to get them going and then dropped my bits into the chest, including one emergency sapling in case everything goes horribly wrong. I guess then it's on to another long night of mining cobble to try and get enough blocks to get over to the village. Cue exciting cobbly montage. There might be a few of these. After a fun night, we've got quite a few stacks of cobble at this point. I reckon it's about 200 or so blocks to the village, so we changed that up into slabs and then I think we should have just about enough. Before we set off, I notice it's finally happened. We now have some actual epic wheat. Yep, simple things please simple minds I guess, but that gave us a couple of extra seeds and we are now flying with the food stuff. I chopped down another tree and popped out some cocoa seeds for whatever that might be useful for later. If skyblock villagers do actually exist, then I don't want to lose them, so I crafted up a few boats just in case, and then off we go on our first adventure. I'm really hoping for some villagers over there, and basically whatever else I can lend my hand on. As we bridged over, I started moving into some shade and looked up to see an absolutely massive mangrove tree. There is absolutely no way I'm mining that right now, but we can defo come back for it later. I carried on bridging over, and we made it! In the first house there was a bed, which is an absolute touch to help us out. No chests in here though, so I went to carry on looking for free stuff, only to find it was becoming night time, and seeing as I couldn't remember how many days till phantoms start spawning, I figured I should probably sleep. As we woke up, I poked my way out of the house and grabbed some wheat from this village farm. I probably should have brought a bucket for the water, but we can come back for that later, because I noticed something much more exciting. A villager! They exist! I started to make my way over, but then I heard the dulcet tones of a villager, and thanks to the villager names mod I'm using, we met our first friend, Patrina! What an absolute hero. I didn't want Patrina running off into the void though, so after many fails, I eventually got them trapped in a boat. I kept moving, making a load of sand fall away, which is just terrifying, before grabbing some bougie terracotta and a stone cutter. After making more terrifying stand issues showing me what could happen if I'm not careful, we found our second villager, Raymond! I guess they knew what was coming as they ran away, but I really didn't want them falling to their death, so thankfully they met the same fate as their mate next door. Next up, it was into the middle bit where I was met with something even better than a villager, a camel! We'll call him Brad. As I tried to bridge over, all of the sand fell away again, which left our new mate precariously balanced on a single hay block. Freaking out, I desperately tried to save them, and eventually did. Phew. The only problem is, I couldn't find the third villager. I may have just sent a villager to their death because of the sand. Should we check replay mod? Yep. Sorry whatever your name was. To top it off, this cat proper judged me before running off and, you guessed it, yeeted straight into the void as well. At least the camel's safe, right? Moving on, I killed a golem for his iron skin, and as nighttime fell I kept searching to find another villager. I found Brenna taking a nap, so naturally I woke her up from her sleep because I'm nice like that and stuck her in a boat too. That's 3 villagers, which is going to be very helpful as we continue in this world. I broke some seeds to see what crops we had for us and got some beetroot and more melons, before making my way over to our second wood of the world, some birch growing in a desert. Totally normal, eh? Lovely jubbly. Made the platform bigger to catch the saplings, chopped away, and now we have 2 birch saplings for an absolute win. Grabbed some of the dirt and a couple of beds from other houses, but by this point we were running pretty low on blocks, so I figured it's probably time to head back. As the sun rose on day 5, I said bye to our new mates and started heading home. We'll come back for this temple later, cause all my blooming tools are broked. I made my way back home, carefully navigating the corner of the bridge, and then legging it home. I dropped off some of our new bits and bobs and extended out the farmy area with the dirt we'd gathered. Planted some of the crops from the village, chopped down some trees, and laid down my new birch saplings so we had a couple of wood types growing. I realised already things are getting a little bit cramped, so I wanted to extend out and went to grab some more cobble, only to realise the actual shame I needed to make another wooden pick to get more stone. Cringe, right? After upgrading the Stone Age for the second time, we then set to work on grabbing a load more stone, but I swear I am losing like 1 in every 2 cobble to the lava. Is there a better way? On day 6, I wanted to get an infinite water source going and to see what goodies the temple had to offer. I cooked up some logs for charcoal to make torches, and while they were cooking, expanded out the platform a bit. Chopped down a birch tree and we were ready for another trip. Grabbed some bits and figured a shield would probably be pretty useful in case the temple had some scary stuff. I headed back over to the village and grabbed some water, so we are now good to go with an infinite water source. I needed more dirt for farmland and trees and stuff, so I decided to bravely head underwater so I could put some blocks underneath to get the extra dirt. That all went great until I got myself in a bit of a muddle and got trapped before eventually managing to claw my way out. I headed back past Brad, who was chilling at the crime scene of the villager incident, and grabbed some more dirt from the other crop patch. Grabbed some absolutely rubbish chest loot, and because it was dark and scary outside, I just slept the night away into day 7. I scooched past Brad, who always seems to be in the way, and then headed over to start bridging to the temple. I ran out of slabs, annoyingly didn't bring a crafting table, so I had to go back over to the village to grab one. Brad was in the way, again. Classic Brad. Made some slabs, grabbed the table, and off we go again. As we eventually reached the temple, disaster struck. This scared the absolute nuts off me as I was precariously balanced on my little bridge and I watched all my gorgeous loot fall into the void. Replay mod shows a couple of zombies decided that was the right time to spawn in and like absolute numpties walk right over the pressure plate. Totes epic sadness. I climbed up because seeing as I was here, I suppose I might as well. Dealt with our first mob of the world, which is the first time I've ever waited till day 7 to do that, before staring at what used to be some lovely loot, all now gone. Covered that hole up, because otherwise we know what will happen, and then I mined out a bunch of blocks. Might as well come away from here with something at least, I guess. Took a peek outside the temple after much destruction and noticed that mobs were spawning on the bridge. I think that means it's probably time for a nap. In the morning there was another temple in the distance, so after our previous failure with the TNT, I wanted to give it another go. The inventory was rammed, so first headed back to drop everything off, and then headed over and started bridging towards the temple. Right next to it was a little dark oak island, which was decent. As we got closer to the temple, you'll never guess what happened. Yep, it only went and bloomin' happened again. All that loot down the drain. Or down the void, I guess. I guess though the consolation prize is the dark oak, so I made a platform big enough to hopefully catch the 4 saplings that we're going to need to make another tree. It was night time though, and there was scary things up there on the temple, so I slept away day 8 before grabbing the tree in the morning of day 9. And did I get enough saplings? I actually did! About time we got a bit of good news. I grabbed the dirt for the road and then noticed there was another desert temple in the distance. I think I've learned my lesson now though, so I headed back home, lighting up the bridge as we went, and when I got back home I realised it's all a little bit too cluttered at the minute. I think we're going to need a better solution for stuff like the trees, crops, sugarcane, and eventually somewhere for some farms. So I think we need to expand out a bit, and you know what that means. Time to spend the rest of day 9 and through the night getting a ton of cobble to fill us up for a bit. That was until I was rudely interrupted by a zombie, which I promptly dealt with before carrying on with the cobbly fun time. Then as my pick broke and we reached day 10, it was time to expand out our base a bit. The first thing on the job list was a big old circle, and this was going to be the place to grow our trees. We need a bigger space to maximise sapling drops, and I'm going to need a load of wood to complete what I want to in this world. Once that was done, it was time to expand out our big middle of the base bit, so I carefully broke down the grass and dirt, replacing it with some very nice looking cobble slabs. I made sure to leave a handful of grass just in case I don't ever manage to get silk touch and I want some later on. After a cheeky snooze and after covering up this giant dangerous hole, it was on to big old circle number 2. This one's going to house some crops and stuff, but before I could fill it in I needed some more wood, so I got chopping down what had grown so far. Partway through the night this lad paid us a visit. Eventually got him trapped in a boat where he'll likely spend the next 88 days. Obviously he's going to need a name. I reckon we'll christen him Jeff. I then realised I'd left some floating jungle which caused me great pain, so up I towered to grab that and then the rest of the trees before starting to fill in the circle with some jungle slabs, before making it safe with some dark oak fences. I must admit it's quite nice to have at least some areas with the safety around the edge after 12 days of sneaking. I then made an infinite water source with the extra water that we got from the village earlier, and the first thing to pop into our new nature circle is the sugarcane. Once that was done, it was time for a crop field, and after the exact right amount of dirt, which excited me greatly, I hoed it up and planted out all the wheat seeds. Obviously we've got to make it look remotely nice, so I surrounded it with sandstone, but then realised it was right up against the edge and that's no good. So I shaved off the edge and moved it all forward. Like I said, it's got to be remotely nice. Then finally, to finish off the naturey bit, I made a little hanging area for our single lonely glowberry. Apparently slabs don't join to walls from the side? Who knew? As the sun rose on day 14, we now have trees and naturey bits, so it's time to build our first automated farm of the world. All we need is a bunch of blocks and then we'll make something that looks a bit like this. And this is me at the bottom, swiping them away with a sword. And with those we'll be able to get an endless supply of mob drops, not to mention some juicy XP. Just a shame that we don't really have that many blocks at the minute. So on to chopping trees again. And the pain of the stone axes I'm getting through is making me pretty desperate for some iron. Especially when I'm at the top of a jungle tree, have no stone on me and I have the shame of getting back down with a wooden axe. After rejigging the dirt positions to maximise saplings for the dark oak, I upgraded to stone again and chopped down the final tree. As it was raining and I don't have a spare change of clothes, I figured probably good to have a nap. Day 15 started with good intentions, stretching out our street here down the middle, ready to make the mob farm. That was until we ran out of stone, leaving me sad and standing next to a hole. So fed up of running out of stone constantly, I just decided to spend the rest of the day and night stocking up on stone. My beautifully constructed cobble montage was interrupted by a spider, who I was very brave to deal with before carrying on for a bit longer. It was then interrupted again, this time by creepers, which I am not bravely dealing with. I think the safer option of a mob farm is the way to go, so I had a snooze to stop them coming back. It was then finally time for me to stop banging on about it and actually get on with making the farm. That was after quickly dealing with some crops to put off being up really high, before then making another giant circle to house the thing. This time it was filled with birch, mainly because I have a ton of jungle and that's what I'm going to use to make the farm. After a nap, I grabbed a load of jungle and some water and we got to work on making the farm. After making a little platform, I put down some water which just disappeared through the floor. I'm sure that's very normal, but I found it kind of weird. After redoing that, I built up into the sky and set to work on making the thing. I went for a saucy junglewood kind of vibe, and it was looking pretty saucy and jungly by this point. But before I could finish though, I was very much running out of wood. So after finding what was hopefully a good spot to jump into the water, I went for it. And I think I might have landed in like the final pixel of water. That was a bit of a fright. Announcement. This next bit might look a bit weird because my screen recording biffed out and didn't record things properly. It basically just looked like this, so I'm going to use replay mod to recreate what I did. Wish me luck! It was then on to getting some more wood for the roof, which after the dirt rejig is starting to give me a few extra saplings in case things go really wrong. I noticed that we had some spruce in the distance, which I am definitely going to want, but that is probably something to grab a little bit later. After chopping everything down, the sun was starting to set, so I figured I'd tend to the crops and stuff before sleeping. To finish off the farm, I need the water to flow the mobs down the middle bit, so with my single bucket I had to tower up twice to create an infinite water source. At the top of tower time 1 there was a bunch of mobs milling about, so I'm guessing the farm's going to work okay. After heading back up, I got to work finishing the farm with the trapdoors to trick the mobs, the water to make them fall down, and then onto the roof. I decided let's mix up the blocks a bit, so I filled it in with birch until I ran out, and to my shame I had to finish it off with more jungle in the corner. After remembering to light up the roof, I safely navigated my way down and saw a bunch of losers falling to their death inside the farm. I'm guessing I've made this one block too high if that's happening to them, but for now at least that'll get me the drops, so all good. By now though, it's getting a little bit silly having all this stuff out in the open. I think we need a little house to call home. I'd quite like to use that spruce we saw earlier though, so first off I set to grab that. I eventually arrived and it gave me some sweet berries and pumpkins, so another food source which is decent. Grabbed the tree and some extra dirt and then headed home with my single spruce sapling. I'm not going to lie, that walking towards the camera bit on this bridge was very scary. I got home, got the spruce growing before I noticed an enderman. Dreaming of ender pearls, I went to grab a boat and by the time I got back he'd legged it. What an absolute wimp. So with that I planted my sweet berries and had a sleep. In the morning I realised that with just one sapling I'm really not giving much room for the tree to grow, so I chopped away to create some space for the spruce sapling to grow. Defo gonna need to make sure I get some good sapling drops from that one, otherwise spruce is gonna be a goner. Now wanting a little build in our world, I got together all the building type blocks we got so far. This is what we have to work with, so I think I can make it work. Plus hopefully a bit more spruce when matey boy over there starts to grow up. Using those blocks and what I could craft up with them, I started to put this little thing together. Obviously I had to stop for some spruce along the way, but I really love building with sandstone, so I'm not mad at all that the walls are using the sandy stuff. It's pretty small, but it does the job, and as you can see from the inside, it's very cozy. By this point I've ran out of bread, so I crafted up a bit and ran over to grab some mob drops, only to be greeted by a baby zombie chicken thingamajig. This is big, and could be the route to an upgrade on the measly tasteless bread situation. I put hitboxes on, and after viciously being attacked by a spider, I got to work. In a desperate attempt not to kill the chicken, I used a bone for some obscure reason, before managing to get rid of the zombie. I quickly ran to the farm to grab a seed, and then I managed to squeeze the chicken out safely. This is actually amazing. By now, the sun was up on day 25, and I made a little pen for this dude to, for now, live in. Fingers crossed we manage to get another one soon. I was going to use this point to say, oh guess what everyone, the chicken's name is so and so. But let's be honest, they are definitely going to get eaten soon, so what's the point? I cleared up the mess from outside and moved all of that into the house, and we are now starting to build ourselves a little world in this void. The rest of the day I just did some odd jobs around the place, like harvesting wheat, collecting mob drops and chopping down some trees to take us through the night. As the sun rose on day 26, I noticed a horrific tragedy. So-and-so the chicken had disappeared. I'm an idiot and I should have put him in a boat. It's okay though, because I googled it and the Minecraft wiki says the chance of one spawning is a whopping this %. Moving swiftly on, we are a quarter of the way through and I have no armour and rubbish tools. My base area is pretty lonely with just me and Jeff, so I think it's time to bring our mates over from the village. So first, seeing as I have hardly any stone, and I'm going to need some space for a big box to store them in, I spent a bit of time swapping between the cobble jenny and expanding the floor out. Before I knew it, it was night time, and that ain't a good time for moving villagers, so I just spent the night at the Jenny to stock up. In the morning I made a very fetching junglewood box for a temporary home for our mates from the village. Obviously I didn't bring enough blocks, so I had to staircase up to finish it off before then heading over to start the long process of moving these guys. After creating an area to slide down, first up was Patricia. I thought I'd be clever and use a composter to try and nudge her over to a boat, but she didn't fancy that and nearly catapulted me off the edge. While she inexplicably stayed as a farmer, I thought I should make it safe, so I put up some barriers, but then the daft sausage climbed up, which was pretty scary. After more failed compostery, thankfully nighttime fell, so I was able to get her over with a bed. After eventually getting into the boat, this dude then spawned nearby, so I thought it's best to sleep the night away. After waking up with a clear head, I redid the bridge barrier with slabs and thought let's go get the second villager moved into the house at the end. I'm not gonna lie, that did not go well. First, when trying the composter trick, Raymond climbed up our fancy new bridge barrier, then after eventually enticing him down, they just kept constantly sharing a boat. That led to me accidentally punching them in the face, which was perhaps a little bit harsh, before Patricia then escaped out of the house and onto the bridge. Here's me panicking about what to do. That actually helped though, as I was finally able to share a boat with one of these absolute delights and able to get on my way. Not gonna lie, this was actually pretty frightening. Apparently a boat does not row straight on a 1x1 bridge, and my heart was racing. I finally got her home though and got her into the lovely box and thought I'd let her sleep after that eventful journey, but nope, she didn't fancy it, so I thought sod it, I'll have a nap myself. Off I went then once again to grab Raymond, who was pretty sad and lonely over there all by himself. As he was already in the boat, this was much easier. I was able to slide down the little cliff that I'd made, and then off we went once again, freaking out on the single block wide bridge. I was then able to reunite the old lovebirds from the village before placing down a load of beds that I'd robbed from our original village trip. I crafted up some bread, getting a weird random advancement in the process, and shared the bread to let them do their thing. And you know what, it was remarkably simple given the pain of getting them over there. You're going to absolutely love it here. Promise. Now looking at all these villager trades, my main aim here is armour and tools, which means I'm going to want an armourer and a toolsmith. I am going to need emeralds though. Usually I'd go for Fletchers, but I currently have no flint. I might go on a hunt for some flint in a little while, but for now I'm going to go for Raymond the fisherman for string trades and Patricia the cartographer for paper. And maybe new addition Hilario will become one later too. I went and grabbed all the string that I'd got from the mob farm and the sugarcane that I'd harvested so far and swapped those bits out for some sweet ass emeralds. We are rocking and rolling, baby. I then removed all the torches from around their box. I really need them to get scared and create some iron golems so I can get some free iron for the armourer and toolsmith trades. I would really like a Fletcher too, as I do have easy wood. I know sometimes you can get flint at ruin portals, and we have one kinda nearby. I'm pretty sure I remember one being near the desert temple as well. So I grabbed some slabs and headed off to the closest one, desperate for some flint, which is something I never thought I'd say in Minecraft. I dropped down some water and floated all the way down to the chest, which unfortunately did not contain the flint. But it did contain some armour and some iron nuggets amongst other bits. That'll do. After several failed attempts at trying to get back up to my bridge, which included some very sweaty hands, I eventually, at the third time of asking, managed to get myself back up to the bridge, to much relief before making my way home. It was night time and mobs were spawning, so that's a good sign for my potential golems. I popped my pants on and dealt with that thing before a lot more mobs started to spawn. It was then I noticed a bloomin' parrot had spawned over there, so after frantically deciding which was more important, the mobs or the parrots, I obviously decided that the parrot was going to win, so I grabbed some seeds and now we have a parrot friend. We can call them Gilberto. Perfect name for a parrot. By this point the mobs had all started to wander over to my half of the platform. To be honest, it's incredibly rude of them, so I got rid of this chap before working my way through the others that had arrived. Feeling brave, I dealt with what I thought was the final one, only for two of his green mates to just appear from round the corner to try and join in the fun. That's one way to deal with them, I suppose. I woke up the next day with the villagers to see that Sierra had grown up, Hilario had a new baby sister Kate, and they were moaning about a lack of beds. I was just about to pop and get some bits, and then I saw that it actually worked and we had a golem. He was just kind of staring vacantly into space, so I gave him a little bit of excitement. After using pretty much all of the golden axe that I found earlier to deal with him, I flexed with his skull, and after cobbling all the iron bits I'd managed to find so far, we now have a whopping 9 ingots. That was enough to get the job blocks I needed, so I made a blast furnace for an armourer. On the way over, I was greeted with yet another golem who seemed to just like chilling on top of the box, so I quickly dealt with that guy, which gave me enough iron for a toolsmith's smithing table, and some lovely iron booties. Oh yeah, baby! There was yet another golem appear, which brings me quite a lot of joy, but before dealing with him, I convinced Hilario to become an armourer, and Sierra to become a toolsmith. With my whopping 6 emeralds, I went to make my first purchase to find out I was too poor even for the first trade. So with that absolute shame, as the sun went down, I thought it would be sensible to fence off the unlit area near the villagers before getting jump scared by this loser from behind. After that, the golem saved my life, so I returned the favour by saying bye bye to him before grabbing a little bit of cobble for the night. I woke up on day 32 to this skelly hanging out right outside my door, so that was scary and clearly the fence thing didn't really work. Went to check on the golem situation and this guy was literally just sitting there chilling with a whole bunch of creepers. Eventually he did get around to doing some work to dispose of this little baby zombie. I was a bit short of food, so I bone milled and harvested up some wheat to get some bread. Then I noticed a cute little cat who obviously I instantly decided to trap in a boat and then moved to the front of the wheat field. She is now the protector of wheat. All hail Baroness Weetabix, protector of wheat. After plonking down another bed made with some string from the mob farm, the villagers got straight to work on another member of the family, bringing little baby Val into the world. Now Val really needs to be a Fletcher because we are not getting emeralds quickly enough. As it was starting to get near to night time now, I just decided to light up the area. Let's be honest, I'm afraid of mobs, they're a danger to the success of this world, and it looks like the golems are just spawning during the day anyway. By this point we were up to 14 iron, so that allowed me to make a chest plate and a helmet, so I'm starting to feel pretty protected now. I spent the night stocking up on cobble, ready for a trip to hopefully find another portal with some flint. In the morning I grabbed some more wheat to stock up on food, and then it was time to go searching for that flint. It wasn't until I reached the end of my platform and had an actual literal epiphany. Why am I going to bridge out really far for the possibility of a couple of flint that might not even exist, when I could just go to the nether, farm the heck out of this sitch and do some piglin trading? Not just for flint, but for other bits like ender pearls. So I extended out the platform and then made this time another slightly smaller circle that would eventually be home to the portal. I grabbed some bits from the house, including maybe stupidly using a whole 2 iron for some shears just to get some leaves. I then started to put the portal together as nighttime fell, when I accidentally placed this extra bit of obsidian, which I now can't get rid of as I have no diamond pick. And then here is the final finished product all ready for us to head off. And whilst this doesn't look exactly amazing, I just couldn't face the idea of literally having just the portal there on its own, so it'll do nicely for now. And if we're heading to the nether to get this show on the road, I'm going to need some more stone, of which I barely have any, so after dealing with that joker, I set to work on the Jenny. That took us all the way throughout the whole of day and night 35, which obviously I mixed in with getting some more iron from the manual iron farm, and from our amazing parrot generator too. Whilst that was all a huge grind, it did mean we are ready to go with a pretty hefty chunk of cobble now. Which took us to day 36, and after sorting out my inventory and treating myself to a new shield, it was time to head to the scary place. Okay, it probably won't be that bad. So in we went to the dodgy place, and apparently the spawn platform in the nether is proper small, so I instantly had to make a little box to protect myself. That included slabbing the top to gas-proof the place. I took a look around to see what was nearby, and whilst there was a couple of bastions, there was no nether fortress that I could see, so that'll be fun looking for that later. Using this map mod, I took a butcher's at the biomes nearby, and then I found what I was looking for: nether wastes, which I think has the best spawn rate for step 1 of the nether fun, zombie piglins. So off we went, bridging out into the nether waste. After making a little midway box for safety, it was then on to making the most basic of basic farms, which is essentially a platform to spawn mobs. I also remembered to put some slabs above it to stop ghast spawning, just in case, because they're a pain. I walked back to my little mid-box bit and they were all there spawning beautifully on the platforms, completely oblivious to what's going to happen to them in a minute. I headed back home where it was already day 38 to grab myself some arrows from the mob farm and to make myself an average bow. I tested it out on this golem and apparently my aim is still pretty good after 30 odd days without a bow, so I headed out into the nether to give this gold farm a little test drive. After annoying them all, I got to work on swiping them away, and let's be all real, this has probably got to be one of the worst sounds in Minecraft, right? After the zombie dudes were all gone, apparently I'd annoyed some proper piglins, so whilst taking cover I had to get rid of those dudes before saying ta-ra to the little one. And after all of that, not a single gold nugget. I reckon those piglins nicked them all, the little rascals. So back to the midway point box for a bit, where we chilled and waited for a load more to spawn before going again. I treated myself to an iron sword, bougie I know, and set them off again. This guy went skydiving, and then somehow a blooming baby one managed to escape and get me down to like 2 hearts. I was proper freaking out, but nothing that a little extra slab and a cheeky baguette won't fix, right? After repeating that process a few times, smelting swords, and doing the zombie dudes again several times, we eventually cobbled together a very moderate 18 gold ingots, as well as some other goodies like leather, 4 actual ender pearls, and some chicken, apparently. There was some piglins left after my last round, so I traded those gold, desperately hoping for gravel that could get me the flint. And after trading all 18 golds, did I get any? Did I bloomin' heck? None whatsoever. So I got rid of them for messing me about, including the babies, who to be fair hadn't really done anything wrong. I went back home to Sunlight and dropped off all the stuff they'd given me before nighttime fell, and I added another parrot to the clan. I did a few odd jobs around the place before having a sleep to build up the motivation to go back and try again for the gravel. After lots and lots and lots of zombie piglin met their demise, and I mean lots if you hadn't picked that up by the way, I decided it was time to try and trade again, where we finally got the gravel that I'd been so desperate for. I quickly headed back home to be greeted with the sun of day 42, where this iron golem decided he really wanted to hug the villager box. You know, because it looks kind of nice. It was then time to blast through the gravel until we got the flint that we needed. I actually didn't realise that when it drops a flint the gravel goes, so I got myself up to 8 before going to make a handful of fletching tables. Val and Kate became our fletchers, which means now we are rocking towards a really decent emerald supply. Well, after I do it again, so I actually get the stick trade from this guy. By the time I'd made a couple more beds, they'd all headed to bed, so rather than disturb the sleepyheads, I treated myself to an iron axe and then just spent the night chopping trees to prepare for trading. In the morning I got to work trading sticks, and after maxing out the trades I was up to a very fancy full stack of emeralds, as well as being greeted by a new addition to the group in Little Mickey. Over the course of the next couple of days I worked on doing some bits around the place, spent time upgrading the villagers, continuing to get iron and chopping trees for the sticks we need. That included Mickey and another newbie Trent growing up to become a fletcher, and everyone ramping up their prices. What's that all about then? In between all of that I'd managed to build up a fair chunk of iron, so to break up the trading I thought I'd start automating the collection of the mob drops. 4 hoppers was all I was really willing to stretch to at this point, but it's a start, isn't it? At this point I have quite a lot of bits from the villager trades, including this very exotic efficiency and unbreaking axe. And using it to chop throughout the rest of the night was actually unbelievable, after 45 days of almost exclusively using stone axes. The hoppers were getting me more string quite nicely, so whilst the fam was sleeping, I made their house a little bit bigger so I could squeeze in another bed to get another fletcher on the go. Another day of trading as I worked hard to get our toolsmith and armourer all the way up to master level. I'm not gonna lie, this is an absolute grind, but it's a necessity really. Yet more tree collection through the night of day 46, and I was hoping it was now for the final push to get myself some diamond goodies from our villager buddies. After collecting a little bit more iron, it was time for that final push of trading that I was talking about. We made one final Fletcher for the road, and after a big final round of sticks, I think I might finally be done with this. A diamond pick and shovel from Sierra our toolsmith, not to mention full diamond gear, baby. Thanks, Hilario. Thankfully, I had enough green coins for the diamond gear, so we are looking super duper head to toe in the shiny blue stuff. Sadly, at the minute I don't have enough emeralds for the diamond pick and spoon, but after grabbing some final wood and trading all of that up with our mates, I was able to grab those as well as a slightly better bow. I said goodbye to them all, and honestly I do not want to trade ever again after all of that, but thankfully we seem to be in a very good place now. One thing that isn't good though is food. I've been living off bread for 48 days and I just cannot be bothered to keep farming our wheat field. Baroness Weetabix is judging me to the extreme. She won't even look at me. And then it pinged into my brain like a light bulb. Big stupid nether pigs! A perfect source of automated food without trying to get stuff spawning naturally. The only issue is, once again, we've got no cobble left. So I spent yet another whole extra night, day and night grinding away at the Jenny. This time, however, there was a lot more blocks for me thanks to the diamond pick, which is already looking pretty worse for wear. Then as we reached the halfway point, it was back into the nether to make the hoglin farm. Going in the opposite direction this time, I was able to find a crimson biome, which I know spawns hoglins because I flipping hate them in a normal world. In this world, however, they are safely trapped away from me, so I can happily swipe away without fear. After doing that for a while, I firstly noticed that A, this sword is absolutely pants and we probably need to upgrade it, and B, we had a really nice chunk of pork which is going to keep me nice and full. And that makes for a happy snow. And it's a good job to be honest, because after so-and-so the chicken vamooshed earlier, there has been absolutely no sign of another chicken ever since. In the morning, I started cooking up the proceeds from the hoglin attacks and I realised that our little house is looking kinda lonely. And I really don't like the Jenny and the water source just sat out there making the place look a mess. So I spent a bit of time getting some materials together for another cheeky little build. These are the bits and bobs that I'm going to use, so it's time to get straight to work. This one is going to be more of a stony, blacksmithy kind of vibe because the cobble Jenny is going to go inside it. And it was all going so well until we were rudely interrupted by a load of phantoms, which I guess can happen when you spend days in the nether and forget that sleeping is a thing. I did manage to get one phantom membrane though, which might come in handy later on, so all in all, a bit of a result I guess. I then carried on with some delightful phantomless building to finish up the house, setting up the water source under a little awning thing and being clever with bone mealing some grass to get some other grass for nature vibes. All in all, it was looking pretty nice I reckon, even in the pouring rain. Only issue is, it's currently empty, so I carefully set up a new cobble Jenny inside. I changed up the floor to something a little less cobbly and then spammed some chests and stuff inside to finish it off. That meant that we could clean up the mess from outside, and we now have a much safer space for resourcing cobble, safely away from phantoms, I guess. And after a bit of building, now I think it's time we start thinking about endgame. And that means it's getting towards the dragon fight. And obviously that means we need to hit one of these things, which look kind of even more scary surrounded by the void. Before that though, we are geared up enough with armour, but the sword is looking a little bit sad. So down went another bed to try and get a weaponsmith, and while we are waiting for that new addition to arrive and grow up, we are going to need more blocks because, surprise surprise, they're running low again. So over the next few days I spent time chopping down trees to firstly trade myself a new pick after ruining the last one at the Jenny. Using this much iron for an anvil was a bit of a gut punch, but it did give me an efficiency 3 pick and a pretty badass axe too. After lots more chopping and Jenny action and a lot of stick trading once again from our new addition Danita, I was able to get myself my first diamond axe, and my second one, and my third one. Then eventually, with yet more excellent trading, I was able to level up Donita all the way to getting this very snazzy sword for good vibes. Okay, Unbreaking 2 was a little bit of a letdown actually. Sad face. I moved on quickly though, combining some axes to get a very nice efficiency 4 one, before buying some more bows, so we are now rocking a very decent power 4 average bow. It rhymes with average snow, get it? Boo! Before we set off into the nether, I then thought it's time to get rid of the very empty chicken pen. That was until I spotted another one had finally spawned. After doing the same trick as last time, I was able to get so-and-so the second into the pen, and this time I actually remembered to put them into a boat. 40 days left for another one to spawn? Likely? Probably not. Unlucky mate. I don't think you're going to be flying anywhere now, are ya? So now a full 6 days after I first mentioned the fortress, it's actually now time. So I grabbed a heap of blocks as well as a couple of gold trousers which I mixed together for some nice Prot 2 ones. Off we went into the nether, and according to the map there's no fortresses nearby, which means it's going to be some very scary bridging on the radar. So I took a punt on going north, which did mean taking a wide berth around the hoglin farm, where I was able to see them just chucking themselves into the void, which I hoped wasn't a foreshadow for me. After a very large amount of bridging, a fortress started to render in the distance, and it was a big one. My thoughts at this point was it's best to aim to get inside the tunnely bit of the fortress instead of the crossing where it's going to be chaos with mobs. So I angled that way and bridged another chunk until we got close enough that mobs started spawning. And there was a lot of them. I wondered how far away they'd shoot me from, and turns out actually pretty far, which is both annoying and also scary. So the plan was place a few blocks followed by a shield block. After getting sniped by this dork, I had to take evasive action and jump down before squeezing my way in and started the 3 blocks blocking to protect me from the wither skellies. The first chest had some shiny blue diamonds and some iron, which was a nice reward, and after killing my first blade and this rude interrupter, I nabbed some gold bits from the next chest. I carried on running round, and after dealing with my first wither skelly, which was easy because of the blocks, I got my first blaze rod from this guy, which was very generous of them. That was quickly followed by rod number 2 before I stumbled into the nether wart bit where I got rod number 3. The joy was short lived however, as I also got jumped by a wither skelly who got me super low on the hearts. After recovering from that, I picked up the nether wart and the brown stuff that it sits on, and after getting my own back on some of the wither skelly's mates and also his grey cousin, I carried on searching for blazes. After dealing with this guy and picking up his bow for good measure, I sneaked a couple of saddles from this chest, which got me very excited as it means I might be able to bring Brad back home. Remember him? I carried on dealing with blazes, which was becoming pretty productive and meant I was building up a nice little bundle of rods. I had a little battle with some more in another netherwart bit that I found, and while chilling with this zombie dude to get some health back, I got sniped again, which was a tad harsh. So after dealing with them and getting myself up to 8 rods, I figured it's time to cut my losses and leave this party early. And after struggling to find my way home, I eventually found the spot and towered my way out. It did not go particularly well, but eventually I managed to get onto the bridge and absolutely legged it while getting blasted by fiery nutters from behind. And looking at all these mobs behind me, I think it was the right call to run around the tunnely bits and not out in the open. After making it back to the portal and jumping back through home, I slept away day 63, and that was the last time I wanted to go to the nether for a while. I put my stuff away and realised I only had 4 ender pearls, which meant actually that was complete rubbish and I needed to go straight back to trade for some more. I was just about to head to the nether when, you will not believe it, another chicken zombie thingy. You don't see any for ages and then 2 show up at once. I'm sure there's a saying for that. Anyway, obviously I had to help the chicken escape, and after getting them into the pen I was able to breed up a little baby chicken. Obviously I don't really need them now because I have the pork, but I feel completely vindicated for keeping the empty pen here now. Let's go! Anyway, back off to the nether I went, where after dealing with all the leftover zombie dudes, I traded up the gold that I already had from back at home. That gave me another 2 pearls, which is obviously not enough, so back to the grind it was of zombie dudes for gold and then trading that up for a couple of days. After eventually collecting another 10 pearls, I figured that was enough, so I headed home. Those 10 along with our other 4 means we should have enough to get to the stronghold. Right? Expecting a long trip to find the stronghold, I figured I would need quite a lot of blocks once again, so I worked hard at the journey to build up another supply. During night 66, I figured I had enough, and with the pick looking a little bit sad, I grabbed some emeralds and woke up Sarah to purchase a new one. I don't want to get ruined by an Enderman during the dragon fight, so I grabbed the single pumpkin that we got earlier. Without wanting to use the one and only I had, I turned it into seeds, planted it up, and then found apparently you can't bone meal all the way to a pumpkin. I pre-made some rockets, and then while waiting for the lazy pumpkin to grow up, it was back to grabbing more blocks to fill the time. Eventually it was morning and we had a nice pumpkin sitting outside, so I turned that into the weird eye version, only to find out that that drops seeds anyway. I actually know nothing about this game. By this point chicken number 3 was all grown up, so I bred up another one, and then it was on to the final prep before we head off. That included making a brewing stand, being a chemist dude and making some slow falling potions, before making the eye vendors and then topping up with arrows from the mob farm. We threw our first eye and yep, it's in a direction we've never been, so I guess it's time for some bridging then. Which is exactly what we did, bridging and bridging and bridging, losing an eye vendor in the process, which was totes sad. We went all the way through day 69 until I ran out of slabs, and still with no stronghold in sight, back home we had to go to try and get some more blocks. That was followed by yet more cobbly Jenny fun time, before apparently, based on the blocks that were just sat on the floor, I ran out of inventory space. So with that, I slept day 70 away, mainly because I couldn't remember when the last time I slept was, and I didn't want phantoms again. After legging it back hundreds of blocks to the edge of the bridge, I carried on. After a while, I could see what looked suspiciously like a stronghold in the distance, so I knew I was at least going in the right direction. In the end, it was something silly like 2,000 blocks, which is just so annoying. I kinda wish there was like a stronghold map or something to help us get there a bit easier. But we made it, and apparently this is the danger section of the world. We've got the stronghold, a trial chamber, an ancient city, and a very, very tall woodland mansion. Maybe one for later, eh? I water bucketed my way down and thought it's probably worth having a quick look around the place for some free loot, eh? I managed to get myself a very fancy armour trim, followed by some pretty unhelpful books and another trim. Then a thunderstorm decided to arrive, which I guess makes sense because this is the danger section after all. So with that, I made my way over to the portal room. After disposing of the mobs who were having a party on the roof, I went to poke my way in and accidentally looked at an Enderman. This got my heart rate quite high up and got me very, very nervous. I managed to deal with him, eventually, but this is exactly why we use a pumpkin, okay? In we jumped and dealt with a couple of those little rats, and annoyingly the portal only had one eye there already. I filled it up, accidentally managed to throw one instead of placing it, but luckily past me saved the day with a couple of spare pearls and a blaze rod to help fill things up. That meant that we were good to go, so after equipping my trusty pumpkin, it was time to jump in for a very exciting dragon fight montage. After that extreme levels of excitement, I collected up my XP rewards, and obviously we needed the dragon egg, so I grabbed that too. I spotted the gateway in the distance, and of course now that means we are heading out for some wings, baby! I chucked my way through the gateway, hoping to see a city right there, and after landing on top of a weird purple tree, there was no city. So off we popped, travelling around in search of one. And without having to do any bridging, which by the way I deserve after all the bridging we did to find the stronghold, I spotted one in the distance, and I hoped with all my might that that little outline of blocks there was a ship. As I started to get a little bit closer, I realised that unfortunately it wasn't, but that thing that looked quite like a ship certainly looked like one. And after being so cocky about not having to bridge anywhere, I needed to bridge to get over there. So after getting myself a few blocks and straining my pinky finger to get over there, it was time to start raiding the city. When I reached it, I realised this might actually be the smallest end city in the world, which honestly I am not complaining about, because that meant I could safely deal with a few shulkers without freaking out. One of which who dropped his face, which I think suited me quite well to be honest, although not that good that I will stop wearing the pumpkin. That's going straight back on. The next shulker dropped their skin all the way to the floor, which was a bit annoying, but that was actually the whole city anyway. So after grabbing the shell, I towered up to the ship to get the big prize. It's those wings, baby! Hopefully no more bridging for a little while. After making a shulker box to carry bits home, I picked up the stuff from this sad and pretty empty chest, and also this slightly better chest which had some gold and some pretty nice diamond gear. All before grabbing the dragon head as our final prize from the ship. I don't have unbreaking or mending for the wings just yet, but I think after all that end malarkey, I deserve a cheeky little fly back to the gateway. So that's exactly what I did before hopping back through and getting a chance to see the credits. Which is always a hoot. When I got back, I had a sleep and then we were on day 75. I feel like up to this point it's all been kind of building up to the dragon, and now I don't really know what to do with myself. So after putting all the end bits away, I made a couple of new beds and chucked down some bread to try and get a couple of villagers. Basically, I need unbreaking and mending, or these wings aren't going to last very long. I fed the chickens and now we have a few more. I let the OGs out the boat, which probably means they're going to disappear. I then went and farmed up some wheat, after which I noticed Baroness Weetabix had a mate. I guess this is the milk to go with the Weetabix. Sorry! Then after that I just kind of potted around for a bit and did a few Minecrafty jobs, like grabbing sugarcane and chopping trees, which took me all the way through into night time. The final Minecrafty jobs for the day were getting some iron and then mixing together my hat and my sword with the freebies I got from the tiny end city. More of an end village really, to be honest. In the morning I noticed that no babies had arrived, so I chucked down some more food and pretty much instantly the villagers just got straight down to work. Little Elise, who didn't know that eventually she would become our first librarian. I did feel a bit bad by this point that they were all a little bit cooped up, and seeing as my platform is also a bit lonely with builds, I figured let's make them some little houses to live in. The sandy build for my house is a nice vibe, so I flew over to the village and started dismantling some of the village. After a pit stop to get a new pick and noticing that Elise's twin Kristen had been born, I flew back over and tore down more of the desert temple for good measure. After getting bored, I spotted another temple in the distance which was right next to a pillager tower. Now I really should be building at this point, but I'm owed some desert temple loot after the previous incidents. So after checking that the wings were still looking alright, I flew over. Firstly landing on the temple and going straight on down in the hope that mobs hadn't spawned yet. As soon as I landed, I heard a stupid zombie sound, but after poking my way in, luckily I was able to deal with them just before they stepped on the pressure plate. The loot was not really worth the wait, to be honest. I got some nice trims, but other than that it was pretty pants. No books or anything. On we went then to the pillager tower, where the plan was to go straight in for the chest, which was completely surrounded by losers. So after grabbing the good stuff that I could see, I quickly legged it and flew home with some carrots, which is another crop that we didn't have before. Oh, and also this very fancy musical instrument. After that insane level of danger, I got to work grabbing a bunch of blocks like all these bits that I could use for some little villager houses. By the time we got to day 79, that was done, and with just these couple of chests, we should have enough to do the bizzo. So I got cracking with building some teeny tiny houses for our 12 friendly villagers. The plan I had was to make 4 little houses and really pack them in nice and cozy so we can make a little town to kind of walk through. And also so I don't have to build out a bigger platform. After the first 3 houses were built on the outside, I had to do something with the current place which was in the way of house number 4's plot. So I quickly put together the most basic of basic interiors to keep them happy, which was essentially a bed for each of them, space to dump the job blocks, and a trapdoor to stop them from running away. That meant after crafting up some minecarts and rails, I now had the fun process of moving them about. And he knows there's a chance this will go badly. I've been warned. So with great excitement, I started that long, arduous task, taking up a full precious day in the process. All until we had 3 villagers sleeping happily away in each of the 3 houses, with their heads half in the walls apparently. These final guys, however, were not sleeping, so into boats they went, and then it was time to knock down their old box of a house. I then had to get rid of all of this villager trade junk, so I took out a few of the good bits before just kind of smashing the chests to lag out my world for a minute. I then just dropped them through the void because that seemed like the easiest thing to do. Ta-ra! I then built the final villager house, which was this fancy slanted roof number, which I think is the perfect little villager house to finish off this bit of the base. As nighttime fell, I made 2 lecterns so we could finally try and get unbreaking and mending for the wings. But apparently they can't be bothered when they're in a boat and it's nighttime. So instead I had to knock up a quick interior whilst carefully moving them around so they didn't fall into the void. 2 of them decided to have a snooze, but good old Kristen here didn't fancy it, so I just slept in his bed instead. Snooze you lose, I guess. Get it? Day 87 came, and seeing as I still have quite a lot I want to do, I didn't want to waste time, so I'm giving myself just 1 day of lectern rolling to get the books that I want. And that didn't get off to the best start because they just kept ignoring the lectern. Eventually though, I thought it might be they were confusing each other, so I moved one of them out to give them a bit of peace. And that started to work as I cycled through the trades to get the books that I wanted. That was until it was night time and Elise just kept trying to sleep and refused to pick up a trade again. So without wanting to waste another night, I had to find another job. The grass I was growing had extended down, so I moved our chickens into a nice new home where they looked very happy. I think. I then grinded the cobble jenny for the evening to prepare for a cheeky build that I wanted to do to finish this whole world off. After a night of all that and seeing that the sun had now risen, it was straight into getting those damn books. Eventually, after a lot of lecterns, Elise gave me the mending, which I am not going to lie, I was pretty chuffed about. But after moving Kristen in to start trading him, I accidentally punched him in the face and he got proper ragey. My payback, he just absolutely refused to give me books. This guy is a complete loser, and after a whole extra day disappearing, I'm just sacking it off, to be honest, as a bad job. I can't spend any more time trying to get unbreaking, so on went mending to the wings, and I'll just keep doing this, repairing the wings with a cheeky little bit of zombie pig death. So now we finally have good-ish wings, I'm thinking about endgame, which is to finish off the base area. I have a build in mind, but I want to head off into this world first and try and find a load of free stuff. So keeping half an eye on the wings, I flew off and got myself a few bits, including some fancy flowers, a couple of different types of wood, including acacia and some pale oak, some pale moss, which was pretty cool, and from this jungle temple some bamboo and a very nice book, and also some more trims. I then tore down the jungle temple for the free mossy cobble. Basically at this point I'm trying to get as many different blocks that I might be able to use for my final build of the world. After I wore the pick down as close to 0 as I was willing to take it, I flew back home. I then rudely woke up Sarah from her sleep to buy a new pick, and then mashed that together with the fancy new book that we got at the temple. Then it was straight back over to grab some more of that delicious mossy cobble. After contemplating where else I could get some cheap blocks from, I decided on the stronghold. On the way over I spotted a shipwreck hovering underneath, which gave me some potatoes and moss, which was actually very exciting and meant that I might be able to swap out some of the platform from that horrible cobble. I then went over to the stronghold to steal some blocks whilst dealing with those horrible little annoying rats again. Although that over there is even more horrible and should probably wait a bit. I then went to fly home as it was night time and scary before realising why would I waste the elytra when I can just take a free taxi through the end. That would be silly, and I am not silly. When I got back home, it was the night of day 90. This little walk through the villager houses is really cute, but we are definitely missing something fancy at the end. Time to cobble together some of those materials. God, I'm embarrassing myself with that one. I then spent the whole of the way through my 91st day and night getting the bits together that I needed. This was really painful because I knew there was still loads I wanted to do, but not much time to do it. When my cobble had finally finished smelting, I had 2 shulkers full of stuff, and as I walked out to the sunrise of day 92, I was able to get cracking. Which started off with extending out the platform in weather that very quickly turned into a whopping great thunderstorm. Hopefully not an omen to mean we won't get everything done, right? Editing snow here. Go back a little bit for me, will ya? Okay, stop! Now zoom in a little bit and press play. My chickens! My poor baby chickens! Serves me right for moving them, I suppose. But after getting over the heartache of electrocuted chickens, I started on my grand build at the end of the platform. I went for a little castle, which should be a good place to have a load of chests and stuff stored away. I used a load of the stone that we got earlier, and then some of the acacia wood for the roofs, because, you know, it kind of matches my hair. And as the sun rises on day 95, our lovely castle is all built to perfection. Well, I say built to perfection, it's completely empty inside and all around it is just full of cobble. So that was my next job, time to make this area look just that little bit better. So I grabbed some bits, chopped down some trees and then got right straight down to work. Step 1 was to break out chunks of the middle of the cobble platform with some jungle slabs. Not perfect, but slightly less ugly than the cobble. Step 2 was to get rid of these torches knocking about and replace them with some slightly nicer looking lamppost things. Like these. Step 3 was to use some of these flowers and stuff to brighten up the place. I'm thinking the moss would be good for that, so I tried to bone meal them up, which apparently doesn't work with cobble. So I swapped it out with stone, which apparently does work. So then I basically popped down loads of mossy bits and covered them in flowers all around the base area. I also popped some bamboo with a bit of string on top so they don't get too big. And when in doubt, just kind of spam leaves everywhere, innit? Step 4 is to go around and put down some chests, barrels, composters and minecarts. No particular reason, it just kind of gives it that little something something. And step 5, which you'll be pleased to know is the last one, is to change our storage system from this absolute catastrophe to something a little bit better. I don't know, at this point I just needed a purpose for the castle and I was able to knock this up in a couple of minutes. I'll decide later if I actually have time to move stuff in, don't judge me. And with that, as the sun sets on day 97, I think that's how you change a pretty ropey looking base into something a little bit less ropey, I guess. And after all that hard work, I treated myself to a sleep and then I had a job that was much more important than making the base look nice. Remember our mate Brad from back at the start? Time to bring him home! After landing back home, I went to drop him off at the castle and that proved a bit more difficult than I expected. So after many more failed attempts, I geniused it and climbed over the castle walls before jumping in. Sorry, Brad. I then thought if the base was going to look fancy pants, then so should I, right? So I made myself a smithing table, grabbed myself my fancy armour trims and trimmed the heck out of this gear. Definitely a fancy pants look, innit mate? Good lad, Braddy boy. As it was night time, I spent a bit of time moving stuff into my snazzy new storage area, including making myself the wall of champions with all the absolute losers that I'd encountered during the past 98 days. After all that was said and done, the sun was rising on day 99, my last day. And what do we need on my last full day? Well, some danger, obviously. So off I headed into the nether, and after not much deliberation, the first place to head was this structure filled with pigs. And not those nice pigs, the horrible ones that punch you in the face. So after flying around for a bit to try and find a good landing spot with some chests, I was just about able to deal with this guy, whilst watching some of his mates just kind of plummet to their death like a bunch of morons. After quickly raiding the chest, I was then able to fly around to the other side before shooting this chap in the face a few times and then getting some more bits from their chest as well. On the way back to the portal, I spotted another grumpy pig house in the distance, and after the success of Bastion number 1, I thought, why the chuff not? And you know what? Boy was I right, because this one gave me some pretty juicy loot too. I headed back home quickly and chucked all of that away in the old castle storage room. But no time to take a proper look at it all just yet, because it was time to go back out for phase 2 of the danger. The ancient city, baby! And when I say danger, obviously I don't really mean danger, because it was basically fly in, grab the chests and then fly straight back out again. Obviously I made it all dark and scary, not just once but quite a few times. Apparently these shulker things are like proper grumpy. Eventually I really pushed my luck and... Yep, out came the warden. Obviously that was my clue to get the absolute heck out of there and fly in any direction possible. After landing, at least I could see he was happy to have been let out. Yep, we did a good thing today. And there we had it. The sun was setting on day 99, so time to head home. With one final little bit of danger, the question of, was the Elytra gonna hold up to get us home? But fear not, my fellow average Minecrafters, we got home nice and safely and we dropped the extra loot off. And you know what? This is some pretty decent stuff, you know. I'm so pleased that I did all of this on literally the last day. My final prize was grabbing the Bastion smithing template and jazzing up my trousers. Looking fresh, boy! So I had my final sleep of the world, and waking up on that big day 100, there was one final thing that I wanted to do. That was to use my last remaining diamond to craft myself a banging ghetto blaster to listen to this absolute gem of a track. Obviously Brad wants to get involved, why wouldn't he? It's a tune. Oh, good. Okay Brad, no need to show everyone your massive butt, dude. And that's it, 100 days completed in SKYBLOCK INFINITE. I've had such a blast playing in this world, with all the friends that we've made along the way and trapped in boats, the villagers that we cooped up inside for the whole time, and of course the epic base that we made. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and if you made it this far, well, you're an absolute ledge and I bloomin' love ya. Bye!